How do you succeed in the AI age when everything is changing? A lot of people are feeling super anxious because we're going through a massive transitional period. Everyone can see how fast AI is accelerating. And in this video, I'm going to share how I think about it, and it could be helpful for many people because a lot of people are feeling this way. So the summary is that there are actually more opportunities, but it's increasingly essential to keep learning and upskilling. But what should you work on? This is what I'll attempt to answer. Basically the summary is here, which you can check. So one of the problems is that many graduates are finding it hard to find jobs. As many people know, lots of the entry-level jobs have now been taken by savings in AI, so companies are not hiring as well. Or you could say that graduates are not as well prepared for the new market as they were before. We're also seeing a challenge with AI and self-driving cars. What's going to happen to the millions of taxi drivers who are not going to have a job anymore? I will attempt to answer this question. So who am I? I am a founder of an online platform for international students to apply to Chinese universities, and we work with some of the top universities all over the world. I have unique insights because I have lived in different countries and worked in this problem and helping advising students on their career paths. These are some of the lessons that I've learned from my 18 years of experience, but I think I don't need to have 18 years of experience. It's possible to learn this on day one with a 30-minute introduction presentation. I see a lot of people who are saying these principles that are absolute truth. It's clear that working hard, getting a job and getting a mortgage, this pathway may not work anymore for the new age. But there's a lot of people saying, oh, you have to build a personal brand, you have to make content. And then there's people saying, oh, you have to learn AI. But how do you learn AI when AI is able to code itself? There's also people who are saying that all the jobs will be taken by AI, or that you need to start building a business to create wealth. But I think it all depends, and it depends really on each person, which path they should take. I think there's many more paths available, but every person is quite different, and so there shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all for every person. So the economy has changed, and these are the main eras of the economy. We went from hunter-gatherers to farmers, merchants, industrial age, and the digital economy. We're now in a very transitional period between industrial age and digital economy. Some things are in the digital economy, like, for example, videos on YouTube. This is very, very much a digital economy. There's other things that are very much in the industrial age, such as manufacturing, and a lot of the way economies are structured. So the digital economy means that in this new era, just as when we entered the industrial age from the previous ages, many things in the economy, the structure of the economy changed a lot. Many of the institutions completely changed. We saw a massive influx of people moving to the cities, and we also saw a huge increase in births as we entered the industrial age. We also saw a rise in the middle class as more people received the rewards of that growth. So one of the big things about the digital economy is that the economics may be quite different. So if you look at, for example, before in the industrial age, everything was quite localized. So you would go to the nearest person in your town and you would ask them, or city, and you would find services that suit you based on the geography or based on the location. But with the digital economy, much of the friction of the physical world has been eliminated. And so what this means is that there's very much a power law, which is what you see in digital economics. The bell curve is something that you see in real physical economics, such as age, IQ distribution, things like that. And one of the classic examples of this is discoverability of businesses. And you can see that the number one search result on Google, for example, has by far the majority of the traffic goes to number one. And this is what's happening in the digital economy. But the other side of it is that in the industrial age, there were a few limited career paths that you could take. You would usually go to university, or you would find a job in a trade, and then you would take one of these career paths. But we're actually seeing in the digital economy that there are a massive number of new opportunities in different niches. So you can be the best in the world at some very specific kind of gardening. And with the digital age, there is this opportunity for you to build in this niche. So there are now unlimited opportunities in different niches. One of the things is that you could say that we are entering an age where the job is no longer as essential as it was before. You can see that the evolution of work happened in 3 different stages. For most of human history, there was the era of unfree labour. You could say this is like slavery in Roman times and serfdom, where people would work on the farm and then they would receive some of that, but the labour was basically owned by another person. Then in the industrial age, we moved towards selling time. So you'd sell your effort and your time for a certain amount. And this works very well because of the structure of the economy and how it was very hard to calculate whether one person was performing much better than others. So everyone was paid very equally. And so the best measurement of that was the time. But as we get into this age, it's quite different because you can now use leverage. You can now use these new tools that are available, and your output is now very much separated from the time. And so you can actually just start selling results. And this is a different way of looking at it. And so you could say that in this age, don't look for jobs, look for opportunities. And when there are a limited number of jobs, but there's always an infinite number of problems and opportunities to solve. So this is how you could look at the structure of the economy in the different ages. So in the nomads, it was very egalitarian. Then when you had the farming age, it was a very different age where there were a few people who owned most of the land, and then everyone else was working on the land, and they were less well off than the landowners, which were very centralized. In the trade, so every economy has a very different structure of the society. When we went into the mercantilist era, there was a rising middle class of people who could trade internationally. And then as you went into the industrial age, we have this booming middle class, which has coincided with the massive increase in birth rates. And now it looks like as we enter the digital age, the middle class is going into 2 different directions. So some of this middle class is moving up, and then some of those who have less relevant skills that don't match the requirements in the market are becoming less well off. And so we're seeing a split in the middle class and with a lot of people in society, which presents massive challenges. This problem, it doesn't happen immediately. What happens is that you can feel that rising living costs keep increasing, and there are rising expenses every year. The things get more expensive, and this is what happens when it's moving into the less well-off and less unskilled. And I think this is the path that we're headed if our economic system doesn't change. But I think we will need to have a different economic system, and we will need to change a lot of things about our economy. One of them is that universal basic income is one solution to this, which means that many people will have less of these rising living costs. And I actually think that we are making a mistake, and we need to upgrade many things about our economy as we enter this age. One of those is the infrastructure. If you think about it, housing, healthcare, education, these actually meet the definition of infrastructure, and they are more like roads than they are a market good. But I can make, this is a whole another subject. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I think it works for the individual and how you should be thinking about it. So this is what happens as we enter from the industrial age to the digital age. And you basically don't want to be in the less well-off. You have to upskill. It's absolutely essential. And this is where the opportunities are. And it's extremely necessary to upskill. And it may be that this is not how society needs to be structured. Maybe we can just upskill everyone and move them up. Maybe that is possible. and maybe we need to move everyone from the middle skill to the high skill, and we need massive upskilling. So I'm talking about all of these ideas, but why is it changing? Why is there this difference now between before and now? Why is it that you can now do something and then it has this massive impact, and it can impact people beyond your time? And this is because of these four different things, four types of leverage that we have. We've had these all in different stages, but now the power of content and the power of code, which are basically quite similar. Content is running on code. These just give you huge reach and the ability to do things that you would never be able to do before. Before, we are very much limited by a physical environment, our time, but now we can make code we can automate it once and it runs forever to millions of people. We also have this ability to create content, like I'm doing now, that can run every day, people can watch it. I just need to do it once, and if people like it, millions of people can see it, and this is what we're seeing with how the economy is reshaping. But there are four basic types of leverage. One of them is capital, so you can put money to work. You can invest in something and then it can gain interest. You can use code, you can create code that does some task that you don't need to do anymore, then you can sell it. You can create content, you can write a book, you can create social media content that millions of people see, and then you can also work with other people, which is one of the traditional ways of scaling and getting much more leverage, is to work with a group of people and align all their incentives, everyone's incentives, and you can then reach much more together than you could on your own. So this is what the types of leverage are that are available in the economy. But I think there's a lot of dogma, for example, that some people are saying you need to build a personal brand or you need to learn AI. But what I think is that every person is very different, and which of these four you should focus on depends on you and your skills. It's essential to understand all of them, but in order to reach your potential, you need to know which one you are best at, which one to focus on, and which one you're weak at, and how to mitigate that weakness. Because usually some people may be good at one or two of these, and then you can just make an amazing career in only capital or in only code. You don't need to do the others. But there's some people who may be good at two, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that. So this is the types of leverage, and this is how you can do some things and it has this massive impact. This is the impact of technology. But whenever there's a trend, there's always a counter trend. And the counter trend, just like it's like the duality, it's like the yin and the yang. It's like before we have labor and capital. We have reason and emotion. Everything has this duality. When you have one force, you have another force, which is the opposite. And in this era of the digital economy, we are going to see another force which is just as important, and that is humanity. That is our ability to be people and our human side. And they are deeply connected, and I believe right now we are seeing this massive rise in the leverage side, in AI, in content, but it's going to follow with this massive rise in the human side and what makes us human. As leverage becomes more important, so does the human side. And what does the human side mean? It means care, empathy, judgment, taste, and alignment. We need to align these leverage and these tools to serve us. So you can put it in this quadrant here, and you can place every job into this quadrant, and you can say, is it low leverage, or is it low humanity, or is it high leverage or high humanity? And you could put some jobs like data entry in the low leverage and low humanity. If you're doing it manually, that would be low leverage and low humanity. You could put taxi drivers, taxi driving. Obviously, if for someone who doesn't speak, there's no human connection, because that can be a side of it. You can put any of these tasks like robotics and working in a factory or stacking shelves in the low leverage and low humanity side. And what we're seeing in this stage is that everything is moving away from this bottom side where it has low humanity and low leverage into the high leverage or the high humanity side. So it's going, the bottom left quadrant of all the jobs is going and moving into the other areas. So the opportunities now would be into leverage, such as creating self-driving cars for reaching massive amounts of people, when you self-driving cars for taxis, or the human side, which is things like care and community and these kind of things, like teaching, which is essential to do one-on-one. But then you can combine high humanity and high leverage to create this where you understand you use the tools of leverage, the 4 tools of leverage or whichever one, and then you combine it with humanity. So this is an idea of how they can be compared. And so these are some examples of different jobs that you can look at that have various levels of leverage and humanity. And there are opportunities in both sides, and they ultimately need to be aligned together. So if you want to develop yourself in these aspects, then the learning side and the humanity side. If you just improve yourself in the leverage side, you can do that, but it's also an advantage to develop yourself in both sides, the human side as well. So these are the tools of leverage, and I would also say that in this era, it becomes much more important to be a super performer and to be extremely capable. And so you can actually look at internal things and internal tools of leverage that can enable you to have a big impact. And one of the most important things now is just being able to learn. And this is probably the foundational principle of this age, if this digital age, is just being a good learner. And then you can have these multiple aspects of yourself that can enable you to perform at a highest level. So being able to visualize goal set and use your own focus, because in this age, the limited thing that we have now is not capital. We have so much capital. It's not labor, and it's attention. Attention is the only limited resource in this age. So it's essential to be able to master your attention and to channel your energy and attention and to understand the world. And so you can look at it as having these internal tools, working on yourself, improving yourself and your ability to direct your attention. And then external, which is like, how do you use the levers to achieve your goals? And there are 2 sides of it. So the fact is, if you're not using leverage in a leveraged world, in the leveraged economy, you are being outcompeted and you're underliving your potential. And an example of this could be could be like the leverage gap. So the example would be someone who is making baskets and selling them on the side of the road, who is doing it individually. This could be, usually this is not happening that much in UK, but it could be happening in many countries. But if that same person was creating TikTok videos, was created an online shop, and worked with a group of influencers to have a bigger reach, and reinvested somehow into using capital, got investment to develop the products of the basket, that would be these things for leverage. So these are the ways of looking at the internal side, which I mentioned. There's a few ways that you can learn really well. AI is an incredible tool because it can feedback, help you to learn. Mentors, you can hire people to help you learn. Feedback loops, and then it's all about absorbing this knowledge, trying it and attempting it. And then these are the different internal skills of leverage that become much more important, enable you to use the tools of leverage much better. And so these are the different tools of leverage and what is important about them. And so, for example, with capital, when you're allocating money, logical judgment is much more important, being able to separate yourself from the emotion, understanding risk and being able to allocate it. And code is more about thinking in systems and architecture. So it's designing it And it's all about logic and communication and prioritization. Content is about understanding the audience, expression and storytelling and presenting it, psychology, and then distribution is not just about, it's understanding the platforms. And then people is about developing talent judgment, being able to cast a vision, attracts people, leading with energy and inspiring, having a purpose, and then designing certain systems that have incentives and KPIs. So these are the different internal leverage tools of leverage that you can use. So what happens in this economy, which is different to before, is that before, when you're in a path, it's an advantage to work hard, but in this economy, it matters much more which direction you're going than how hard you're working. You need to work hard, of course, but it's essential to be working in the right direction, on the right things. It's much more important because in this kind of economy, when you can have a massive impact, you want to be able to choose the lane that and the target that you're going to. It's not just about working hard. But sometimes this feels weird and counterintuitive. You feel like somehow when you work hard, you should have some reward, you deserve it. But it's not how it works in this economy, in this age. What matters is the results, and that's one of the shifts. So I actually have a quiz at the end of this video, which asks you a few questions, and then you can check what your type of leverage is, what your strength and what your weakness is. And so you can check it and try it at the end of this video. So these are the 4 types of leverage. One of the reasons this is key is because everyone is different and everyone has different advantages and disadvantages. So another thing is that you can use leverage together to combine to create something else. You can stack leverage, so you can make this flywheel of capital allocation, creating code and content. And there are many successful people. You can look at Elon Musk, for example, how he's using multiple types of capital, content and code. And so, for example, X, which influences, and he's just using basically all of these. And this is one of the super formulas, is just to use all of them or combine all of them. On the other side, it's possible to get stuck in a kind of low leverage loop trap, where you are doing work that is not of high leverage and you are stuck, and you may not be able to get out of that doing low leverage tasks. And so it's essential to try and break out of that. And I know that I've sometimes had this before, where I'm doing low leverage tasks and need to break out of it and to find some solution to do it. So these are some of the traps and the ways, and then how you can get out of it. You can basically try and work out what it is, like what is the bottleneck in in your work, and then use it. It's also quite interesting that economies and companies and empires in history, they have also had some used leverage as an advantage. So you can also use this framework as an individual, but as a company, and looking at history in how different empires used leverage to have an advantage and to win over others. So looking at the taxi driver problem, so how can taxi drivers use leverage? I was once in a taxi and the taxi driver asked me, how can I find opportunities? And so this is one of my answers to that. They're basically not going to be taxi drivers' jobs, and I've been thinking about this problem quite a lot. What do you do when, how do you retrain these number of people? How do you get them to be productive again? They can use two solutions to it. One of them is to use leverage, because they are in the bottom left quadrant, which is the low leverage, low humanity side. So they can either move into the high leverage or the higher humanity side. So if we look at the higher leverage side, the taxi driver could create content to reach, like create a podcast or create some kind of content about it, record videos, do interviews, change what it means as a driver to create some kind of content. This may not be really the best way From some, they could move from the people. They could look to become a community builder. They can look into the business of buying taxis. It's essential. So there's like multiple areas that can expand into. But this is the other side, which is to go into the human side, which is to focus more on the local expertise. So, for example, could be like a local tour guide, can learn more into personalized experience and offering premium taxi support. There's always going to be a need for people to provide personal support to people in need. It's going to be a smaller part of the market, but it's still going to exist. And there's probably could also be a requirement in the safety side and assuring people. So while the bulk of the market is likely to be completely reduced because of self-driving, there's also going to be a massive need for human side in different areas. And then in terms of leverage for taxi drivers, there's multiple opportunities to create other areas and to go into leverage. Or it could just be about moving into a different market that doesn't have the same dynamics. So here are a few principles in what I think is essential in this digital age. The first is that learning is incredibly important, needs to be continuous learning. If you can learn anything, it's the core of everything. It's the number one skill that's needed in this economy. There are many resources online, but the question that everyone still has is what should you learn? Because when you are faced against AI, what can you do that other can't do? And so that's why demand and supply discrepancy is essential, because now we're in an economy which is much more competitive. So I actually spent a long time not totally understanding this, that if you work on two problems, the one that has a demand to supply discrepancy is just much more valuable to work on. If there are so many other people who are doing it, if you open a pizza restaurant next to one area, you're not going to get paid as much as if you are going into a field where there's a massive lack of talent. And so it's essential to think of things as like a market and then putting yourself in the market. So there are lots of opportunities in the UK in plumbing, as electricians, in AI, cybersecurity, and these could be short-term opportunities, or it's a way of thinking about things in the demand-supply discrepancy, because it's basically a market. The other strategy is to hyper-specialize, and this is what my company did. We focused first on one very specific law school, then we expanded to multiple law schools, then we expanded to recruitment for Chinese universities. Now we're going into international global admissions, which is students studying abroad. So this is a really good strategy because you can focus on one specific niche, hyper niche, and then become the best in the world at it. And then when you've expanded to reach the market size, you can then expand. And this is what many successful companies like eBay did. They focused on one very big, PayPal did. They focused on one niche, then expanded after that. So there are lots and lots of niches and lots of opportunities that most of the big companies are overlooking. And they're always going to overlook because they are focusing on the big market picture. And so you can learn, you can grow in that niche before expanding to an adjacent niche. The other principle is to use leverage. And because we're in a leverage economy, it's essential to learn about leverage and to learn how to use it. You can also combine it for much better impact. Then mindset becomes much more important because it's all about how you think and how you direct your energy. And there's a great saying, how you look at the world reflects what you see back. And this is completely true. One of the other principles is to be location independent, because if you are in one market and then you move to another market, now you understand two markets. So you are learning a lot more from the other market. Maybe you can bring it back. You can get unique insights. You can work between them if there's a market, if there's an opportunity, or you can just choose which one is better. So you can go back or you can stay where you are and you can just choose. So everything points to being location independent and trying or learning in a different market. The other principle is that the internet is the frontier and opportunities are always at the frontier. The internet is constantly expanding and this is where opportunities are. Yeah, the other principle is to build proof of work, because it doesn't matter as much about your CV, it matters more what kind of things you've created and what work you've actually done. And then the other principle is to develop your human side. Human side, I think people are underappreciating how important the human side is. The human side matters more now rather than less. If you have an aligned AI, it will win market share in the long run. Understanding the market, understanding people is a huge advantage, and it's something that AI cannot do. Judgment, understanding creates better products, creates better content, and allows you to allocate better. And all of leverage is ultimately, like right now at least, controlled by humans, and it's for humans. So develop your human side, it helps you to make you happier. So this is the dogma. Work hard, get a job. It matters more what you work on than how hard you work. Working hard is important, but it matters more which direction you go. You have to build a personal brand and make content. Content and AI are one of the opportunities now, but what you work on depends on your personality. All the jobs will be taken by AI. The nature of jobs is changing and there are new opportunities. Start a business to build wealth. It's essential to think more entrepreneurially and understand the market, and humans are now more important. So this is a quiz that you can take to help you understand which do you think you are best at, which to focus on. You can think about which of these 4 types of leverage is energizing for you. What do you hate and what do you not wish to do? Like, where do you naturally gravitate? Where does your language, what do you naturally think in? One of the ways is you can think of, where do you get the most energy from? What excites you? There's something about that is, there's some intelligence in following what excites you and how your energy feels. And what do you hate and what do you feel you really hate? And what do you also have a head start in based on your previous career, or previous work, or what you've done so far? And what do you feel really satisfied? So it's good to focus on one of these parts, and then you can narrow down once you know which one to focus on, to narrow down as well. But it's essential to understand all of them. These are some of the common types of leverage, archetypes of people and what they're best at. And you can also have like a dual kind of leverage, so you have one and the other. So we're moving from the industrial age to the digital age, and there are different rules that apply in this economy. So we need to change how we think about it. The problem is that AI is automating the economy, but working hard and getting a job, following the set path, it no longer guarantees success. The digital economy is a winner takes all in terms of leverage, and but it also creates unlimited opportunities in different niches. And it also makes the human side much more important. And so you can choose to focus on the leverage or the human side, or both. The solution is that to use leverage, or to combine with humanity, or to focus more on the human side. The ideal path is to operate in high humanity and high leverage quadrant, using purpose and using tools, and low leverage, low humanity tasks. If you're in one of those, it is most at risk of being automated, and likely will be automated. Learning and upskilling is essential. It's essential to engage in continuous learning, and find one opportunity is to find a niche, master that form of leverage, and then keep developing your human side. If you think that was helpful for you, let me know in the comments, what is your leverage type? Do you have any questions? And thank you, good luck. And I will share some links as well about how you can take a quiz. And if you're interested in the quiz, I will put the quiz in the description that you can take to find your leverage type and to help map a pathway for you in the future. Cheers.